Hi. It's April. And I really wish there was a hint of green on the trees outside my window, but not yet. We're beginning to get the very front of the red that comes with maple trees before they leaf, but you know, it hasn't been a terrible winter, but I'm really ready for spring. So this is my this and that video for April. I had thought that I would, you know, from time to time, when I go to New York or some other place that has a lot of galleries, that I might be able to actually shoot some images while I was there and then come back and share my gallery or museum experience with you. And here comes Bob. Okay, darling, here we go. He turned 18 a little while ago. April 1st was his designated birthday. So I'll celebrate it 10 weeks out from that, which is when I got him. Anyway, I went to New York in March. I went there to join the kids for the March for Our Lives, and I had a little bit of time the night before to go to the Whitney, where I have not been yet. It's been open several years, and I feel a little embarrassed as an artist, but I haven't been. In fact, I haven't really had the time to go to New York museums in a long time. I miss that. I'm going to do a quick little homage to Grant Wood. They had a show of his there. And of course, we all grew up on American Gothic. I mean, imagine what it's like to make a painting that is universally famous. I mean, certainly across the country, but even around the world. Across the country, it's as well known as the Mona Lisa, or Munch's The Scream, or Guernica. I mean, it is just this iconic painting that we all know from when we were little kids. So Grant Wood was born in 1891 or something like that, and he died the day before his 51st birthday of pancreatic cancer. So he only lived 50 years. And he grew up in Iowa. He's a farm boy. I'm a farm girl. I actually think that some of the reason why I like some of his work is because I'm sort of, that landscape is embedded in me too. In his 20s, he went to the Art Institute in Chicago for training, and in his 30s, he went on several trips to Europe right before the Great Depression. His last one was there apparently in 1928 when he went to get stained glass cut for a stained glass window that he had been commissioned to make for a veterans center, memorial, something or other. And we had terrible glass. He couldn't find good glass colors in this country, so he wound up going to Germany to order the glass for that. And that little bit of information will matter in about 5 minutes when I talk about one of my favorite paintings of his. So American Gothic, I grew up on it because it lives in the Art Institute of Chicago, where he went to school, and that was the museum that I went to starting when I was probably 5 or 6. In fact, I trained myself, I taught myself art with that museum by going to the painting and trying to name the painter before I looked at the tag. And then when I didn't get it, then anyway, that's sort of how that was my art history class, was going to that museum. So American Gothic, the title is because of the house. He found this house that he loved with those curly little things along the roof line somewhere in Iowa, and the whole painting was born out of the fact that he wanted to make that house. So his paintings, he used models, but he was not painting portraits as I am of a specific thing. He was using models that were standing in for some kind of an archetypal thing he was talking about. So the models for American Gothic, his sister is the woman, and the husband, the guy, was Wood's dentist. The sister insists that it is a father and daughter in the painting because she couldn't bear the idea of anyone thinking that she might be married to such an older man, or might be older like he looks in the thing. So that's sort of funny. But I don't actually know that Wood ever said definitively one way or the other. It doesn't matter. It's all sort of standing in for things. And you know, it's a wonderfully ambiguous painting. Now, one thing I discovered on this painting, even though I had grown up with it, but I'm looking at it, I've got my glasses on, which is what I need to do now in museums. I'm going to go close, and these days when I'm looking close, I'm looking at how somebody's painting. So I I was quite struck with his style. He uses a little brush, a little bitty brush, which I used to use but don't use so much anymore, and it's almost pointillist, but it's just stroke, 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 over the entire surface of every canvas. It's not like he's using different brush sizes. He's using the same little brush and the same little strokes, and it's pointillist in how it's put down, but it's not pointillist in how you're looking at it, because those strokes are so close together that they dissolve. You really need your glasses and be really close to the work to see it. But that's also how he gets such wonderful soft edges on everything, with that little stroke, stroke, stroke. So when he was in Europe, he was over there in the 20s. So he was, meeting all of the Impressionists and all of that, and he was most taken actually with the Northern Europeans, maybe of a generation or so earlier. And when he came back to this country, he was devoted to regionalism, and he was for the rest of his life. So he decided he was going to make a language that was based on where he lived, which was Iowa, and he was very committed to living in Iowa. So the other painting I want to talk about was also at the Whitney show, and it's called Daughters of the Revolution. And I think he might have been commissioned for this. He was not a fan of these women. And you can tell in this painting, although they're rendered perfectly in the way he does, but they're sort of vacuous. There's something empty about all of their faces. So the DAR, when he had first been commissioned to make that stained glass window that I said, which was back in 1928, he was thwarted by the DAR. They're like, how can you use German glass? We just finished World War I with them. They're a terrible, terrible thing. We can't have anything from Germany. It's awful. And his stained glass window did not get put up until after he had died. So 30 or some years later is when it was finally able to be installed, even though he made it. So in the Daughters of the American Revolution, or Daughters of the Revolution, you've got Washington crossing the Delaware behind them, which is perfectly rendered. Look at the little bead along the frame edge. I mean, it's sweet. And I hadn't realized it until I was reading up about this. We all know the painting, of course. The painting was painted by a German, even though it's Washington crossing the Delaware, and it was painted when he was in Germany, which was him sticking it to these ladies. And then if you look at the clothes that they are wearing, the detail, the lace around the collar, just how exquisitely that's rendered, and the flower on the other dress. If you pay close attention to this painting, you can see that everything but their faces is present, and somehow they're not. And I don't think he considered the painting entirely successful, although I certainly do, and he did sometimes refer to it as his only satire. But I thought it was really wonderful. And I thought that I loved how he unobtrusively worked his own political commentary into most everything he made, but that he left it an ambiguous enough canvas that any of us could step in and fill out our own meaning. So that was it. The next time I go to New York or someplace for a gallery trip that I want to report back to you, I promise to take more pictures and have this more thorough, but here's to Grant Wood. Say goodbye, Bobby. Come on.